My name is Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and I represent California's 13th Congressional District, and I am a proud member of the Congressional Black Caucus. I stand with my colleagues in calling on the Senate to pass voting rights legislation immediately. Our democracy is under attack. January 6th was an attempted coup to stop the peaceful transfer of power. State legislatures across the country are actively undermining the basic right to vote for millions, especially black voters and voters of color. The John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act are essential to safeguarding our democracy. These bills would restore the Voting Rights Act and provide the tools to address voter discrimination, voter suppression, and will protect everyone's right to vote. The Freedom to Vote Act will increase access to the ballot box by making Election Day a national holiday, allowing early voting and mail-in voting, and much more. This year, as we approach Dr. Martin Luther King Day, it is more important than ever to protect the basic right to vote. We must safeguard our democracy and ensure our constitutional rights are protected for generations to come. The Senate must act now. This is our power, our message.
You know, I was out and been thinking about Dr. King all day and what he would think of today's situation. I know it would just have his heart ache to see the divide in this country. All the work that he pushed for gone to waste. It is really sad. And I am thinking of a poem that really talks about what Dr. King was all about. He didn't want special treatment for anyone. He wanted equal treatment for everyone. And so the poem goes, whether you have blonde, fleecy locks or black complexion, it does not forfeit nature's claim. Skin may differ, but affection dwells in black and white the same. And were I so tall as to reach the poles or span the oceans with my hands, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of a man. Keep that in mind. Happy King Day.
Equality, justice, freedom, and peace. These are the values exemplified by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that we're celebrating today at Gateway College award ceremony. It's been a difficult 2 years, not lost on anyone. But in the most challenging of times, we also see what makes our community so great. The award winners here today remind us that even in the face of adversity, we have dedicated and optimistic leaders who continue to work to make our community better and lift others up. As we celebrate the presentation of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Humanitarian Awards, I'm reminded of a quote from Dr. King. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? During the past 2 years, as we have navigated through this pandemic, we saw time and again our community step up to help, in line with Dr. Martin Luther King's challenge to us. Last week, I joined senior dining and Meals on Wheels in Kenosha County. And speaking with the volunteers on a cold day, I was reminded of the creativity and effort that is required to provide this essential service to our seniors and those in need. In many ways, it's the volunteers in our community, the charity work in our community, and the people that truly live out the words of Martin Luther King that make our community such a great place to live. As Dr. King emphasized, it is always the right time to act. I'm encouraged by the stories of tonight's humanitarian award winners for their efforts to improve the lives of those around them. Our community's heroes are guided by the pursuit of equality for all, upholding justice, protecting and expanding our freedoms, and seeking peace. We should all strive towards these values to become better people and members of our community. And tonight, I applaud tonight's award winners. I'm honored to participate in Gateway College's MLK Day celebration and thank our leaders who positively affect our community. As we start the new year, may we all be able to get our way of life back and continue towards equality, justice, freedom, and peace. And God willing, next year, we'll all be back in person at Gateway's campus to celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. God bless.
Everyone, it's been more than a half a century since a young preacher named Martin Luther King spurred the sleeping conscience of our nation into action and forever changed the course of history. In the face of hate, Dr. King sowed love. In the face of injustice and oppression, he was a champion for justice and equality. In the face of brutal anger and viciousness, he called for nonviolence and understanding. But I want to be clear, he didn't go it alone, because none of us do. He followed a trail blazed by those before him, of black men and women who stood up for the idea that everyone in this country ought to be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And his influence came not just from the beauty of his words or the power of his ideas, but from the millions of people around this country who believed in him, the people he organized, mobilized, energized, and rallied to build what he and others called a beloved community. So today can be about remembering history, but we also need to remember that this work is far from over. The right to vote is under attack across America, the right which Dr. King and so many others fought so hard to secure. It's been nearly 2 years now since we lost my dear friend John Lewis, but I think he said it best in his final words to America. He said, "The vote is the most powerful nonviolent change agent we have in a democratic society. We must use it because it is not guaranteed. We can lose it." My friends, the work of Dr. King is not over. These old fights are new again, and we must rise to the occasion and meet this moment with the courage, perseverance, and strength of those who rallied behind Dr. King and march with him towards the promised land where all Americans can live together in mutual respect and brotherhood and sisterhood. Right now, in this country, voting rights are under attack. They're under attack because the people in power are working to undermine the power of the people. But they're also under attack because too many of us are okay with sitting on the sidelines. They're okay with inequality and injustice because it doesn't impact them. They're okay with voting rights being undermined because their right to vote isn't being impacted. But the reality is that none of us are free unless all of us are free. And we can't sit on the sidelines. The future is in our hands, and we need to honor Dr. King's legacy with not just words, but with actions. Not just with videos or events, but with the hard work to make real change. You know, Dr. King used to say that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And I think that's true. But that's only part of the story. It doesn't bend on its own. The arc can only be bent if we all come together, united in our work to bend it by fighting to bring about peace and justice. This is a time for renewed activism, a time to organize and, yes, even march. This is a time for all of us, in the words of John Lewis, to get into some good trouble. Together, let us put in the hard work to build Dr. King's beloved community and create a more just, peaceful world in our time and for all time.
Today we celebrate the life and legacy of a true American hero and leader, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Through his life's work, Dr. King taught us the power of working towards something bigger than ourselves. As we celebrate Martin Luther King Day, let us be clear-eyed in our understanding that while we have taken positive steps forward together in the March for Equality, we still have so far to go to achieve the promise of full equality and justice for all. Now more than ever, we must continue to work together to do right by the memory of Reverend King and his life's work to protect every American's civil rights, especially our constitutionally protected right to vote. Let us be guided by Dr. King's example today and every day, and keep working to make sure all Americans have an equal opportunity to achieve their hopes and their dreams.
Hi everyone, it's Congresswoman Haley Stevens, proudly representing Michigan's 11th District. And I join you today in recognizing Martin Luther King Day, the incredible individual that was Martin Luther King, his vision for this country, for economic justice, for breaking down racial barriers, and being a visionary in his own right. In 1983, we signed this holiday into law, and now we have a day on, not a day off, a day of service, a day to ask ourselves, what are we doing for others to compel ourselves to serve our community and to go out in our community and continue to remember the life and legacy that was Martin Luther King Jr.'s. In particular, I have over the years really enjoyed celebrating and recognizing the history that was Martin Luther King's life. And I've also very much appreciated doing the volunteer work that I do throughout the year, but certainly joining together with so many in our community as we give back, as we come together to learn from others and help others. And also, as a lawmaker, I want to take up the charge of Martin Luther King's directive, particularly as we stand at a very important moment in time to protect voting rights, to see the Voting Rights Act passed into law, something that used to be bipartisan, and some of our dysfunctions have gotten in the way. Those colleagues of mine who knew Martin Luther King Jr., who marched with him, who asked for peaceful change, something that is celebrated and recognized no matter who you vote for or what side of the aisle you're on. So together, let's recommit to seeing voting rights passed into law. Let's recommit for an America that is inclusive, that promotes equal opportunity, that recognizes our history, even the parts that are uncomfortable or difficult to read, and that also reconciles injustices that continue to plague us, either economically or within our criminal justice system. That is what I'm working for every single day in the Congress. And I am so pleased to be able to be together with all of you somewhat virtually, or if I happen to see you out in the district. Thank you so much.
Hello. As we celebrate this year's Martin Luther King holiday, I hope everyone is staying safe, healthy, and in the spirit of Dr. King, I hope all of us are staying focused on building a better and more just world. Dr. King understood that an inclusive American democracy, if we could truly achieve that ideal, would be a powerful force for peace and justice. He gave his life for that cause. And other civil rights champions, like my dear colleague John Lewis, who unfortunately we lost last year, well, they risked and dedicated their lives to that cause as well. Our great champions of civil rights and social justice understood that progress is not a straight line. That arc of the moral universe sometimes wavers and bends backward. Big victories sometimes have to be re-won to bend things back toward justice. And that's where we are today. Our country has gone backward in recent years on some core values, including civil rights and voting rights. In fact, the very concept of inclusive American democracy is under attack right now. We're being forced to defend victories that were fought and won long ago, like having a democratic republic and guaranteeing everyone's right to vote. Across this country, state legislatures are introducing hundreds of bills to restrict access to the ballot box and to put partisan political operatives in position to override and nullify election outcomes that they disapprove of. This insidious movement is driven by Donald Trump's big lie, and it is straight out of the racist, anti-democratic playbook that leaders like Dr. King and John Lewis fought to overcome. I want you to know that my House colleagues and I are pushing back. Last year, House Democrats passed multiple election integrity and voting rights bills, including the For the People Act and the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act, to restore and protect the fundamental right to vote. Unfortunately, due to arcane congressional rules and relentless gridlock in the Senate, these measures are stalled right now. So that's our challenge this year as we reflect on Martin Luther King's legacy and what we can do to carry his work forward. Senate inaction is unacceptable. Defending a Jim Crow relic like the filibuster is unacceptable. We must all demand that the Senate bring voting rights legislation to the floor and pass it into law now. At consequential moments, history presents a choice. Lawmakers can be on the right side of history or the wrong side. Protecting the right to vote is a sacred responsibility, and each member of the Senate right now is going to be judged by history. As Dr. King said in his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Our democracy promises every American the right to vote, regardless of race, gender, disability, or education. And now is the time. As the fundamental right to vote is under attack, now is the time to protect and restore those rights so that we can once again make real the promises of democracy. The world is watching. Adversaries and allies alike are waiting to see if American democracy can meet this moment. We all have a role to play in securing that promise, and I have confidence in our collective power. So I want to wish all of you a safe, peaceful, and purposeful Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Thank you.